I'm going to share my screen. So everyone knows I went through computer issues a few weeks ago. I need to allow access. Hang on. Maybe you don't know that I went through computer issues. Even better if you didn't. Okay. Let's see if that helps. Great. There we go. Perfect. All right. So pull that screen up. All right. Okay. I'm not even on the right screen. I'm all the way at the end, making sure I had everything. All right. So it's months. Hi, Heather. Also running Chicago. So there we go. We have the Chicago crew in the house, which I love. Hi, Heather. All right.
Hi,
So,
sorry.
You're good. So this month I want to talk about running shoes. This actually came up in the WhatsApp group for the Denver Boulder crew, and they were talking about running shoes and what shoes to wear on the track. And I thought, I've done so many Instagram stories and so many different like small pieces of content around running shoes, but it really is such a big needle mover when it comes to running and specifically training. And when we are running 4, 5, 6 days a week, running shoes actually play a pretty big part in how we show up every single day. And actually, it's one of the ways to keep us injury free. So you can't buy happiness, but you can buy running shoes. And that is basically the same thing, which is so true. I have done quite a few things to get like the latest racing shoe, either to try and practice, or in the case of Cherry Blossom earlier this spring, I got the Alpha Fly 3 like the week of the race, which was pretty wild. So I think that running shoes is probably one of the most fun ways that we can stay healthy because we can rotate our running shoes. And I'm a big believer that like we can choose a series of different shoes, and we'll talk about that and what that looks like. But also we can choose fun colors. We can have it match our race kit. We can have it be fun. And if you're on a budget, there are ways to go about getting shoes at a slightly cheaper rate, which is great. So there are a ton of studies out there that show that actually by rotating your running shoes, it reduces your injury risk, which is wild. So a running injury is usually caused by a repetitive stress injury or a repetitive motion that you get. And if you are wearing the exact same shoes for every single run, which I did, and I think all of us did when we got into running, and maybe some of us still do, you are putting on the exact same shoe. Your foot is landing in the exact same way every single time you take a step. And it's also causing the same balance and the same like posterior chain, the same single leg landing on the ground. And when you have that time and time and time again, you're most likely going to get a running injury. But if you switch out your shoes, you can prevent this. So fun fact, it actually takes 48 hours for the foam in the shoe to decompress between runs and be ready to go for your next run. So we joke about how, or I joke, I don't joke, I talk about how like recovery is such a huge piece to training. Well, our shoes need twice as long as we need to recover. So let that shoe breathe, let it decompress, let it get back to its original state before taking it out for another run. So if you can wait 2 full days, that's ideal. And you can change up your shoes in the process to be not only in a better state while you're running, but it's also going to lower your injury risk. And what I also like about this is that it does keep things like, I know Heather and I've had this conversation about shoes and like, okay, if we add, let's say we have 4 or 5 different running shoes, which is not what you need, but you can do that. And if you do that, you are elongating the time that your shoes are able to keep you running healthy, and you don't stack the miles on as quickly. They stay in better shape. And once you make that one first initial investment, then it's really easy to replace when your shoes are ready to go, because chances are, if you are, let's say you are using 4 or 5 different shoes, you probably are leaning into a few of those shoes a little bit more than the other shoes. And so it's going to be a really nice balance of rotating them out when you need to. So different things that we want to look for in a shoe are the stack height. So that's going to be how high the shoe is off of the ground. Over the course of the last 20 years, the stack height continues to increase. So the average stack height of a shoe is right around 40 millimeters. And I think what's really funny about that is I love like a good low stack, or like, maybe something around like the 30 millimeter mark. And I have this really great pair of Solomons. They make road running shoes, and they gave me a pair of the Aero Swifts. I think it's the Aero Swifts too. And they look so clunky. The stack height is enormous, but they are the most comfortable shoe with the best response. And I've been wearing them probably a little bit too much, but I love them. Next up is the toe drop, and that's going to be the difference between the forefoot and the heel. And you might have heard of the company Ultra. They create a 0 drop. So what that means is that your forefront and like the ball of your foot and your heel is dropping at the same level. I also got a pair of those to try. And I know there are athletes who could be listening to this call that wear Ultras. More power to you. I went out for an 8-mile run, and my calves were destroyed because I'm used to having, maybe it's a 12 or a 10 kind of toe drop where you have a little bit more of a lift to be able to support your lower body. Now, this is all going to be like, it depends kind of situation with everyone. Like, everyone's going to be different. Everyone's going to want something different. It's really just like with running and training, going through and trying new things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Shoe weight is also really important, especially as we get into like the racing shoe, the sole and the materials that create like the bottom of the shoe. The arch support is a really big piece to the shoe. And then also, of course, like the foam or the carbon plate. So the toe drop in a running shoe, we just talked about that. The low drop shoe is more for your ankle flexion. So it really does help your ankles. So for those who are running in ultras, you probably have a little bit more of that ankle flexion and feel that and have that. But when you have a higher drop shoe, you're going to get more of that knee flexion, which we love so much. And it's also really important to know that like your running form can change too with different types of drops, and really with any type of shoe. And you can shift from a midfoot to a forefoot strike if you have a low heel drop. But a higher heel drop does signal to the runner that they need to shorten their stride. So this is kind of getting a little bit into the weeds of like, maybe this is more information that you wanted to know about shoes, but it is something to think about down the road. Like, I'm at a point in my running where I've run for 5 straight years with a coach, less like a few months. And I'm at a point where now I'm like, okay, I have so much dialed in. I kind of want to look at my shoes and what kind of shoes I'm working out in, not just what my coach wants me to wear, and also my racing shoe and what really supports me in a race versus what the media is telling me to wear in a race. So arch support is another really huge piece to the running shoe. When I first started running, I had an overpronation in my arch, which means when my foot landed, it caved inwards. And when that happens, you can have a slew of injuries. So I had to wear the most stable shoes out on the market for a very long time. It took a lot of strength training and PT exercises to make that more of a neutral landing where I don't necessarily cave in as much now. But I have a very high arch. So if you have a high arch, you're more than likely going to overpronate. And over time, just like with that repetitive sort of injury that can happen with wearing the same shoe, if you are constantly either overpronating or falling inward, or the motion control shoes are great for the inward foot rolling, which is where like the outside of your foot is leaning out. That can cause a lot of injuries, but there are shoes for that. And then there's, of course, the neutral shoe. That's for the people who have really good strength training, really good balance, really good single leg work happening, and they can land consistently on their foot without caving in or out, which is awesome. If you have questions on, well, I don't know what I do, you can definitely go to a running store. Most running stores will have you run on a treadmill, and they'll be able to tell you in 5 seconds what you do and then give you a list of shoes that will help you run your best in these three categories, which is stable, neutral, and then motion controlled. So for shoes, we want to target around 300 to 400 miles, and that's typically how long a shoe can last before it starts to break down. I've tried a lot of different shoes in my experience. Every shoe is different. Every single shoe is different. I love the Adidas Adizero shoes, and they work really well for me. It's a lighter shoe. You could totally wear it on a tempo. I would wear it on easy or long run days. Great long run shoe. Um, but I have an athlete and friend that wears or had that shoe as well, and her shoes were breaking down at like the 150-mile mark, and I was getting well over 300 on this shoe. So just know that it's going to be a little bit different for all of us and what that looks like. But it's really important to make sure that you're not running in old shoes. So Strava is a great way to track it. You do have to update every run. I'm getting back into that now, just to make sure, but usually you can track through Strava. So Strava will send you like a notification when you get to like 250 or 300 miles, to just take notice. And then also it's all about feel. And if I feel like a shoe is flat, and maybe a shoe's flat for a second day, and then I'll give it one more run. And if it's still flat, meaning like I just feel flat, it's probably not me. It's probably the shoe. So that's also a good way to know that it should be retired. And hey, take a look at the bottom of the shoe. I had an athlete, this was a few years ago. She texted me saying like her shoes just didn't feel great, and she was just wondering if she needed new shoes. And I said, well, how long have you had the shoe? And she's like, I don't really know, but it's the only shoe I've been running in. And I knew how much she was running. And I was like, can you send me a picture of the bottom of your shoe? And she's like, great. She did. And she was like, I feel so embarrassed. It was literally like holes at the bottom of her shoe. Like it was beyond retired. So checking the bottom of the shoe is also a great way to know if there are significant wear marks. You're going to know exactly where your foot lands on the ground, but there will be significant wear marks. Hopefully it's not to the point of getting a hole in the shoe, but that definitely does happen. And know that some race shoes, i.e. Nike, they are closer to the 100-mile mark. But it really does depend on the material of the manufacturer. Again, like I have the Alpha Fly 3s. I have, I think, over 40 miles on the 3s right now. They're in great condition. Tamana, which I think a lot of you know Tamana, she has the Alpha Fly 3s, and I don't think she could get over 30 miles on her shoe without it breaking apart. So again, another example of how different that can be. You're obviously going to have decreased performance and, of course, a risk of getting injured. But I do like to recycle the race shoe, and I like to use it for workouts and tempos within workouts until it feels like it's done. So I wear Alpha Flies on the track, but wow, they are so flat because I took those babies out for what did I have this weekend? Hill workout. And I think I had a mile at goal pace, and I could just feel how flat they were running on the road, which is a little bit different than the track. So just pay attention when you're running and notice, and be okay switching out shoes. It's probably not, maybe it's fun. It's probably fun in some ways, maybe not fun to spend the money on new shoes, but it's going to be way less expensive than having to go to PT and stop training because you got injured using a shoe that needed to be retired a long time ago. So let's talk about the running shoe rotation, which is a really big piece to running shoes. When you first started running, you probably wore the same pair of shoes. I did. I had this awesome pair of Nike Pegasus. They were fire orange, and I felt like they just made me fast because the color was so bright. They came out with that same color in the very first 4% that came out in 2019. I wore them for my first marathon. I still have those shoes. I have not necessarily, I guess I did come out with that color in the Alpha Fly shortly thereafter, but I haven't seen it since. So I'm hoping Nike comes out with that color again, because as much as I love a pink racing shoe, like a fire orange race shoe just like brings the energy. So you might be wearing one shoe right now. You might be wearing 2 or 3, or maybe you have 6 or 7 shoes to choose from. I think it's really important to keep it simple if you're just getting into this. And the best way to keep it simple is taking a shoe that you love. I know a lot of people love the Brooks Ghost shoe, and buying a second pair of that shoe. Keep it simple, and then rotate every other day with the shoes, right? Every day you're rotating. So maybe it's every other day you're wearing the blue pair of Brooks Ghost, and every other day you're wearing the pink pair, and you're doing it that way. It's very easy to get into a rhythm, I think, when it comes to shoes. It's probably, as someone who has decision fatigue, because I make a lot of decisions for a lot of people most days, including myself, picking shoes is like my favorite part of the morning, going out for a run. Like that just brings me so much joy. As you can see in the photo, these are my shoes from like 2 years ago. I love the poppy fun colors, and it just brings me joy. So you can rotate through the same shoe every other day, or if you want to advance, you can look at having a shoe for your easy and recovery days, and that's going to be a more stable cushion shoe. You can look at getting a second shoe for your long run, and that could be something that's lighter weight, that has more energy return. So the lighter it is, the more pop you're going to get. The Adidas Adizero, the Adidas Adios, those are both great shoes. The Nike Zoom Tempos, or Nike Fly Tempos. They keep changing the name. Zoom Fly. It's the Zoom Fly. Nike Zoom Fly is a great one for the long run. I've been wearing the Solomon's Aero Glide 2s, and those I've run very strong long runs over the last month in those shoes. They just have a little bit of pop to them, which is nice. You kind of want that for the long run because you're either running a little bit faster than your easy days on your long run, or you could have a little bit of marathon pace and you want to have that nice pop. It's also great to test out your race shoe in training and on like a long run. So in training could be on a workout day, and then also making sure you test out your race shoe on an 18 or 20-mile long run for the marathon. And then for the half marathon, it would be like one of your longer long runs that have quality or pace work inside of that long run to test out that shoe to make sure, one, it feels good. Two, you feel confident running goal pace in. And three, you know that you have a shoe that's going to work for you. It is something that we can control hands down on race day. And I don't want to have athletes, and I don't think anyone listening to this conversation or this call wants to be an athlete that has a shoe issue on the course, because it's going to slow you down. It's going to be frustrating. It could hurt. And it's something that you could have prevented. So I've shared this story many times, but we have new people on this call, and there's always new people coming in and out of the Elevate team. So this could be a new story for many people. But for the first Boston Marathon, I got a new pair of Alpha Flies that Monday of race week. So I had a full week to go, and I was in a very heavy taper. I wasn't running. I guess it wasn't a heavy taper. It was just low mileage because I wasn't running. My peak was like maybe what I run now on like my base. Like it wasn't anything extraordinary. So I was running like 3-4 mile long or 3-4 mile runs during race week. And I'm like, great, I have this new race shoe. I should test it out. So I tested it out in my workout, which was 4.5 miles, felt fine. Packed them, went to Boston. And by mile 10, and this is something that happens with Nike, and it's something that I know happens with Nike and my arch, is that my arch is so high, the top of my foot sits up high, and the laces on the shoe hit a certain tendon in my foot. And around mile 10, my foot is warm, it's expanding, right? Our feet expand when we run, and that tendon was poking up against the shoe, like the inner shoe insert, by like the eye lace thing, and it was just irritating. It hurt, and it just continued to get worse and worse and worse. And I had to stop it was right around mile 20. I had to relace the shoes and go again, and I felt better. It didn't totally go away, but I felt better. And I should have put it in this presentation. I took a picture after the race to show my MacGyver lacing skills to get it to like work. Thankfully, this had happened with a previous pair of Nikes like a year before this, so I knew what to do. But also, you don't want to be on the side of the Boston Marathon trying to relace your shoes at mile 20, looking up at a hill either, right? Or for the people on this call, like running down the streets of Chicago, that's just not what we want to be doing. So testing out your race shoes and workouts, one long run I think is great, is good enough. And then I say, put them in the box, put them in the bag, put them on the shelf in your closet, and be good to go until race day. And then you also want to have a workout shoe. And the workout shoe could be the same as the long run shoe. I know a lot of people do that. I do that for some things. So that's going to be a lighter shoe that gives you a better energy return. So you're not running in heavier shoes trying to run fast. So it's can be very simple, and you can kind of make it what you want to make it. So like I just said, easy recovery days, more stability and weight to the shoe. Long run, you want it to be lighter, better energy return. Workout shoe, lighter, high energy return. And then the race shoe is going to be the lightest shoe on the market. Test out the shoe, make sure it works for you. Test it out in training, long runs, or race simulations. Make sure it works for you. And be okay saying that the best of the best shoe on the market isn't the shoe that works for me. I'm highly considering changing my racing shoe for my fall marathon because I've had some marathon tempos, and I have a good one on Saturday, and I'm testing out how I feel in the Alpha Fly versus the Vapor Fly. And I've been wearing Alpha Flies in racing, but the Vaporfly just feels like I get a bit more snap. And that's definitely what I'm looking for at Indy. So test it out and be curious and see what works and see what doesn't work. And start simple. So you can buy a second pair of trainers like you do, rotate between the two. You can add to it. So much fun. Experiment. That's like the biggest thing that you can do. You can try them on, test them out, decide what works, and then stick with that exact same pair and version because as companies evolve and expand, they're always changing something with the shoe, which is annoying, but at the same time, it is good because like the Nike Zoom Flies, I love the fourth version and I do not like the current version. But I know if they change it again, I'm probably, hopefully, going to like the sixth version because they are a great workout shoe, a great long run shoe. And I really like that shoe. So being able to wear a variety of shoes is going to make you happier and healthier overall. You're going to change up the way your foot is landing on the ground, which is going to prevent injuries. And running shoe stores are a great place to start. Jump on a treadmill, have them see how your foot lands. What are the best shoes for you? Do you need a wide shoe? Do you need a narrow shoe? Do you need one with stability? Do you need neutral? Do you need something with motion control? And then figure out which ones you like the best. Most places are really great about returning shoes too that don't work out. I know Running Warehouse is a great place where they take a lot of shoes back, even if they're worn, if they don't work for you. So don't be afraid to ask for that if that's something that you're concerned with. And it doesn't take too long to find out the shoes that work for you. I've had all the experiences. I've even had shoes where it was like too narrow in the toe box, and my feet felt like they were on fire by like mile 2.5. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is something wrong with me? Do I have like I was like going down, spiraling very, very quickly. And I took the shoes back and I just like casually mentioned it to the running store, and they were like, "Oh, this shoe runs small. I bet the shoe is too small for you." And we tried a bigger size, and I was fine. I didn't have like a neurological disorder or anything. Like I was on the train going down fast. Like so don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to go to a running store and try things out, run around. For the Alpha Fly 3 launch, I went to a store in South Denver to try them out. And I was like a kid in the candy store. I was wearing these shoes. They let me run in the parking lot. And I was like ripping off some fast paces because I wanted to like test them out in this parking lot running circles and like just make it fun, make it you. And just figure out because ultimately that's going to make you a more confident, happier, healthier version, which is what we want. Okay, so I know that we had some conversation in the WhatsApp about heel lock, which is avoid heel slipping in the shoe, and lace lock, which is avoid laces untying on the shoe, which is a problem I have in almost every race. So I dropped a YouTube link here, which I'll include in the recap email, just for you to see like how to do that and what makes sense for you. I think double knotting the laces is usually a good bet. Pro tip, when you wear throwaway clothes and you're taking your pants off, ladies or men with like, obviously if you're running shorts underneath and you need to take your shoes off to get the pants off. So just make sure that you have your shoes double knotted, maybe stride around a little bit if you can after that, because that's usually what gets me. And then my laces come untied during the race. Happened at Boston last year. No joke. Mile 10. Pulled over. Okay, Q&A time. Does anyone have any questions, comments, anything that you want to chat and talk about? We have some Chicago people on the call tonight, so I'd be more than happy to also chat about Chicago.
I have a question about race shoes.
Yeah.
So my favorite race shoes are Hoka. They don't make them anymore. They are, I think it's
Ooh,
like the Carbon X3. I have a new pair ready for Chicago, so it's not a problem for this training cycle.
I'm
But
stocked
I'm
up.
trying, I was like, when I saw it was being discontinued, I bought a bunch of them, but they'll only last for so long.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to look for a new race shoe for the future. Um, I do like Hoka's and I've looked at, they do have other carbon plated ones, but
Mhm.
to me, they seem heavy. So I guess my question is in terms of like, is there really a benefit of getting a carbon plate if the shoe is that much heavier than like they're like the same weight as like some of their like stability shoes?
That's what I was wondering about the weight. I would
Yeah,
say
they're
maybe
like 9 ounces, I think.
yeah, I would say
Yeah.
maybe finding a pair of shoes that match the same weight as your current race shoe. So, what's interesting about a carbon plate is that it doesn't work for everyone. And that's something to know about yourself. Like the carbon plate could make it clunky. You might not be able to get the turnover you want. There's nylon plates out there. But I would say play around with it and maybe find something similar in terms of the weight. And I wonder if Hoka released anything about maybe their recommended shoe. Like if you raced in this shoe, we discontinued it. We kind of recommend this one. And if
Yeah.
it's that one that you're talking about, um, Asics and New Balance are like full steam ahead in the race shoe department. And that is a great place, I think, to lean into. I think when you're a Nike person, you're running in Nikes, Saucony's kind of that other brand that you can lean into a little bit. But with Hoka, I think you'd be happy with like Asics, New Balance. They have some great shoes, like
Yeah.
sold out, like
Yeah.
everywhere.
I've tried the Asics, the Metaspeed Sky. I ran that last year in the marathon, and that one was really good. So that might be one I might go back to.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good one to, yeah, think about.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you made a
I
great man. Like when you're buying, like if you know a shoe is maybe discontinued or they're changing the shoe and it's going to be maybe a change that you're not necessarily excited about, one stock up on it. It's probably on sale. And you can get shoes on Amazon, like previous versions, like older versions at a lower cost, which is nice too. Or eBay, which is where I got my Alpha Fly 3s. They verify race shoes too, by the way. But if they
I have a
break,
question.
yeah. Hi, Heather.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Um, so just because you had mentioned that you might be switching to the Vaporflies, so I have been racing in the Vaporflies,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you remember, but last year
I
during
do.
one of my training runs, I tried the Alpha Flies and they didn't work well.
I know exactly where you were. That's like my route. I can feel it all right now.
It was terrible. It was awful. But I was thinking about, so I'm just kind of asking about your personal experience. Like I was thinking about trying the Alpha Fly threes.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just wondering if like I should even I mean, if I should even bother. I don't know.
Yeah, I think um again, a personal decision. What I feel with the alpha flies is that I'm not getting the snappiness that I want out of that shoe. And I didn't really know that until I got a pair of vapor flies. And at first I was like, no. And then I started wearing them on tempos because I didn't want to wear the threes because they're so expensive. And I got the Vaporflies at the Nike discount store in Denver. And so I was using them and I'm like, these are actually pretty great. And then I wore them for the Boulder. And I think my biggest hesitation on switching is that I know my legs and body is more sore after wearing Vaporflies, and the Alpha Flies specifically have a better recovery aspect to them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try the Vaporflies in like a 20-mile long run. I don't want my legs feeling fatigued at 20 miles, or I know how my body should feel at 20 miles. And if it feels more tired or more sore wearing the Vaporflies, I'm not going to do it in the race for the race.
That
And
makes
I'll
sense.
deal with the snappiness. So you could, the Alpha Fly 3s are, I think once you try them though, it's like tough to return them. They're better than the 2s. I'll say that, but it just doesn't feel like I get the pop that I want.
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that Nike's not wanting to take them back now once
Yeah,
you try them?
yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
maybe try them on the treadmill.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just know, and like I've like read articles, tried to like watch critiques, and people say like essentially what you just said is that you have you the shoe absorbs like more of your fatigue in the alpha flies. But
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and I don't know, you know, what that's going to feel like, but I'm going to try it in training and make a decision based off that. So that's what's nice about training, right? Is that we get to experiment with things, and maybe it's like one of the long runs that doesn't mean as much to you, which I know they all mean a lot to you, but like maybe it's like the easy run, or like the one that has like just moderate pace, or we're just working like high zone 2, low zone 3. So it's not like, a long run that has the progression or the marathon quality work in it. I guess if you do that, my recommendation would be to bring the other shoe as a backup, and then maybe
Yeah.
you're running loops, and then you can change the shoe if it becomes a problem.
Since you brought up New Balance, I also wanted to touch really quick. If
Yeah.
anyone's interested in trying New Balance, I've been using this training cycle for the first time, New Balance Rebel 4s, Rebel V4s or
Oh, yeah.
something.
Uh-huh.
And just for long runs, and I love them. I feel like they're super, I don't feel like very fatigued. My feet don't feel very fatigued after a long run.
Oh, great. It's
So,
a cute shoe too.
I looked at, they have a race shoe too, and so I read some articles about the race shoe, and I don't know. Everyone has an opinion, so I couldn't. I
I
don't know.
know. I know. And I think what's tough about that is like you just have to know what you want, what you need, and kind of like push everyone else's comments away, right? Um, it's really tough. If you can race in some of the shoes too, or do like a hard workout, that kind of gives you an idea too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? I guess the last thing to mention with shoes is when you're running workouts, it's okay to wear trainers before you get to the track. Change your shoes into a different shoe for like the actual reps, the intensity, and then change back into your original shoes for the cool down. That's totally okay. If that seems like too much work, too much logistics, whatever, you can just wear one shoe throughout all of it. That's fine too. Shoes are fun. We love shoes. There's so many good running shoes on the market. The technology continues to improve, which is a lot of fun. And I'm really grateful that I get to try out a lot of shoes to be able to at least share what I like, what I don't like about it. And then it's up to you guys to um, lean into it or lean out and do something that works for you. Like I love the New Balance suggestion, Heather, and it's always nice to find a shoe that you can run long in, feel good, and you've had some great pace work, very well executed for the Chicago prep. So yay for that shoe and you. But the shoe helps. I mean, the the shoe can definitely make or break the run. Great. All right. I'm going to stop recording.